So I didn't notice, Nick, until watching this film
Hi, everybody.
just yesterday that the kid who plays Michael Sullivan Jr. is our new Superman on the CW.
Oh, he is.
Yeah,
Yes.
Tyler Hoechlin.
Oh, it took me.
I
Oh my
watched
God!
the
Because I've
whole
been
movie
watching
thinking
that.
about
I've been
that.
watching that. How did I not need to see that? Well, sometimes when that comes on, I don't start from the beginning. Just like, oh yeah, it's on. I watch it.
Yeah, and I guess 20 years will do a lot to a person where you're like, oh, you've grown up and now you're saving all of mankind.
Well, this
So,
is the movie where Tom Hanks was acting with him, and he said, "This kid's going to be a far better actor than I will be."
well, I don't know if he's there yet,
Yeah.
but we'll find out as we break down at least their first film together. And the final film for both the final feature film that's live action for Conrad Hall and
Right.
Paul Newman.
Yes.
So today we're talking Road to Perdition. And welcome back to the show. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
Hi, welcome back. Thanks for finding us, and thanks for watching. And for our loyal fans, thank you for continued supporting the show. You can follow the show on Twitter and on Instagram. We do have a Patreon. Check that out. We're also members of the Minnesota Film Critics Alliance. Check that website out for our other members' film reviews. And today we're talking about, because it's 20 years old, Road to Perdition. If you didn't know, perdition is another way to say hell.
Yep. And, they've gone through some hell, I think, by
I
the
think
end of
this
the
has
film.
gone through hell, right? Yeah.
So in 1930s Illinois, Michael Sullivan Jr. has a strained view of his father, a man who seems to dote on his brother more and also work more away than at home. When Michael Jr. discovers that his father is a mobster and killer, the father and son are on the run from the mob in search of sanctuary after their home life is shattered.
Whatever you can criticize about Sam Mendes, I don't know how he does it. He gets some of the most remarkable cinematographers to work with. I don't know if he pays them above their rate. I don't know if he gives them top marquee, but he seems to find wonderful cinematographers to work with. So I don't know if it's just flushing personality to get him. Everybody's just hopping. If you're a cinematographer, great, you want to work with this guy.
Well, and that's surprising, too, because I was even reading just when Paul Newman met Sam Mendes, Mendes went to his home to try and court him for the role, and the first thing Paul Newman said to him was, gosh, you're young. And so, I think as any, distinguished performer, distinguished person who's on a crew would probably think to yourself, what are your credits? Please, give me something to go with here. Sam Mendes, I think he started working with Conrad Hall on American Beauty, if I'm correct.
I think that's right.
So they already had a good relationship, and that's what got them over this. But how did they get together for American Beauty? I have no idea.
I don't know, but then he gets, for 1917, he gets the Deacon.
Yeah.
But, he works with great cinematographers. This is based on the graphic novel by, I think it's Collins, right?
I think Collins is the first writer for you.
There's small little differences from the graphic novel to the movie, and then one of the differences, spoilers, the boy, little Michael, grows up to be a priest to make amends for what his father atones, And John Rooney in the comic book is very, very brutal. He's not a very nice guy. In the movie, he's kind of nice. Paul Newman's character.
It's hard to not get Paul Newman play at least some semblance of nicety.
Soft, right? Yeah. And I think it's Michael. I think it's O'Sullivan, if I would go back.
Oh, okay.
Not Sullivan, but O'Sullivan. But there's just minor little differences. I think the graphic novel is drawn really, really well. And I think the same kind of sequence of the boy in wonder of the reflection of the Chicago going into the city.
Yeah.
That's in the comic book as well. And it's drawn like that, but they use that in the movie too.
See, and that one is one that's shot really well because I couldn't tell if that was 2002 CGI or 2002 very well done set direction. I can't tell, and that's what's so good about it. It has that kind of gloss to it that makes it look like you're entering a dream. I think watching this movie for the first time in probably at least a decade last night, and I got the opportunity to see that. Just the way that it overall looks and feels, it's reminiscent of a comic book. There has these great shots that you could almost take out as panels. Like even our final confrontation with Rooney in the rain is so well shot. And as I was watching it, I was thinking to myself, I think Nick could draw this. I think this could be something Nick could be drawing and putting in one of his because it just looked like something that you would have been influenced by. And speaking of influences, didn't realize that this movie and the comic book would have been influenced by Lone Wolf and Cub, which I can see so much to it.
Star Wars is really Obi-Wan's series, and Mandolin's series seems to say it works out well. Lone Wolf and Cub,
I've come to learn that that's one of my favorite subgenres because it just seems like every time you have that, I'm like, yeah, give me more of that. And even I wrote a book and didn't realize that it was a Lone Wolf and Cub style book. Yeah. I have to go change some stuff now.
If you're stuck, it works.
Yeah.
We'll go back to The Thing in the Rain because I have a little bit of it. It's a little over to. It's one of the most flashy parts of the movie. Even though it's not really a flashy movie, this is very a quiet movie. It's really weird because it came out in the summer, but it's for a summer blockbuster. It's quiet.
Yeah.
For a lot of the action is really subdued. And I think it's like a rich palette, but it's like those metal tone colors. There's not really like pop, like color, like we see for like French New Wave. But this is really reserved colors, really texture almost to this film.
Well, and I had read somewhere that Tom Hanks and Conrad Hall both pushed for Mendes to scale back the violence until it meant something. Like, make the violent moments meaningful.
Right.
And that's kind of what happens here is we don't really get a lot of our violence happens off screen. A lot of even our like our moment in the rain happens off screen. We're seeing it through Hanks's eyes instead of the blood and gore. Yeah.
Syrian Hines is
yeah, exactly. Even his is like it's off in the distance, as much as you can. And I think that makes it so when the violent moments do happen, you do feel the hit that's there. And for a mobster movie, you expect it to be very much on the level of maybe the Untouchables, where like they're just gunning with their Tommy guns or something like that. This is very much like minimalist, but it means something.
Right, and this is and I just one of the because it's a summer blockbuster. You think like we're just going to go high octane.
Yeah, was this August? I think it was like it's like but back then, back in 2002, August was not considered the summer placation that it is now. Guardians of the Galaxy was one of the first films to be successful in August. For a blockbuster movie, August was kind of seen as the kids are going back to school, so now it's for parents to go and have their time. So.
I'll bring that. It's a good interesting case because I put in my notes. This is produced by Richard Zanuck. His dad was Daryl Zanuck. Now Daryl Zanuck is one that had a friction with Jack Warner, and he branched off to start his own company, which is 20th Century Pictures. 20th Century Pictures became so successful that they bought another film company, Fox Studios. So then it became 20th Century Fox. Daryl Zanuck was a successful movie producer. Then I think Richard's the youngest, but he's his only son. Richard then worked for Daryl, and then for a lot of bad choices of picking for producing films, I think Daryl fired him. Not really, just go away.
Just shuffled him off,
But Richard has gone to acclaim record. He produced like the movies with Paul Newman, like Verdict, and then won a Best Picture for Driving Miss Daisy. And this is the first time, I think 2002 is the first time he produced two movies. He did Reign of Fire with Gerard Butler, Christian Bale, Matthew McConaughey, and this movie. And I think with this movie, I don't have anything research, but I just feel like this is like Richard Zanuck's last attempt to get a Best Picture movie going. But I think, you release in August, like they said, it's kind of like open up the doors for a little Oscar notoriety, little Oscar kind of bait in films.
Yeah.
And I think he tried to invest heavily to try to get kind of a Best Picture. I mean, you get Tom Hanks, you get Sam Mendes, you get Paul Newman. You do a little bit late in the summer, and I think you want to get notoriety. But I think what happened is people in the Academy realized this is based on a comic book. There's a harsh disdain, but still in 2002.
Do you think that was the case with the comic book thing? Because I didn't even think about it until I saw it on a list of best, I think, DC comic books that aren't the DCEU or something like that. And I was like, wait, this is? And this was just like a year or two ago. I consider myself, while not an intense comic reader, one that's aware enough. I'm aware of the surface level. So I was surprised to learn that. I didn't know that was a case back in 2002 or anything.
I think the reason why it was ignored for Oscar nominations because they knew the source material is comic book. And I think
it does surprise me because it got 6 noms and 1 win for the cinematography. Newman was nominated, a number of other technicals, but not a Best Picture.
That's what I'm trying to
I could swear that I saw it on the Best Picture list, but then doing the research for this episode, I was like, oh wait, no, it wasn't. Which surprises me to no end because I do think this is a tremendous movie. And that's the case with Sam Mendes, is I love so many of his movies that anything even at the bottom of a ranking would still be pretty darn good. But I couldn't even tell you which one's my current favorite of Sam Mendes movies because it's just like he's done so many great movies of such a wide viewpoint as well.
From American Beauty to this, and then 1917.
And 2 Bond movies, and then not even the small Away We Go with John Krasinski, which is just kind of a little romantic drama kind of film.
Yeah.
He's just kind of done everything, and that's why his movies stand out as well as they do.
If you didn't know Conrad Hall, my God, my film instructor at college for a film history class, he loved Conrad Hall. I think we had to watch all that. He had a compilation disc that he put together, great Conrad Hall scenes. So I was very familiar with Conrad Hall's work. Then I realized he's a cinematographer for this movie. It's kind of another reason to go. And then I think this is right. His last movie, he passed away after this movie was made. But he is the one that for Cool Hand Luke, that has Paul Newman into it in the movie too. But he's the one that allowed you to have flares on camera. Before Cool Hand Luke, if you had a flare in the camera, people were like, oh, you have to fix that. You can't have that. To the point with Conrad Hall, I think they were shooting 12 hours a day out in the sun. He's like, just leave it. It just looks like how it feels out here. And from then, you have an acceptance to the point where J.J. Abrams is appreciating that we can have flares in movies.
Conrad Hall walked so J.J. Abrams could run.
Right, yes.
Well, I didn't realize that there was 2 Conrad Halls. So that was a learning experience for me. I didn't realize that his son, I think W. Hall, who did a film we talked about, Panic Room, shot that. And then Conrad Hall's father was a pretty famous writer. Mutiny on the Bounty was one of his. So like they've kind of always been in there too. But there's a couple of halls that have been throughout the movie verse for a while, and I didn't realize they were 2 separate until I really looked into Conrad Hall's work a couple years ago. The Blu-ray edition that I have for Road to Perdition actually has a great special feature on the life of Conrad Hall and his abilities and his working stuff. It's really fantastic. If you own that copy, check that out because it's really cool. Because I didn't realize, of course, he'd worked with Paul Newman numerous times, and this would be their last live-action film together, and last in total. But they'd worked together, Cool Hand Luke. I saw Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid for the first time recently.
It had to be the pitch to get Paul Newman involved for Sam Mendes. Well, we got Connie Hall involved. Well, I'm sold.
This was his long game from American Beauty. Like, I'll get Conrad Hall to work with me, and then I can get Paul Newman for the next one.
There's 2 flashy scenes for cinematography in this movie. When I'm talking about the one that's shot in the rain, that's very flashy because a crane shot of the O'Neills lighting up the bar scene that says O'Neill Bar, and lighting up the whole atmosphere, and it's hard to shoot in the rain. But then the flashy of the crane hotel room when he executes. Yeah, that's the sun. Very flashy.
It's one that stands out, and I don't mind that it stands out because it's just so dang cool looking.
Right.
I think that's maybe the one thing you could say about Conrad Hall is like he didn't hide some of his best looking shots. He put them on display. And I mean, and they're there and they have purpose. But sometimes you almost step out of the movie and you're like, oh, that's really cool looking, and then you go back in. It never once ruined the experience for me, but it was great to see like a master of his game just having fun. And a lot of people consider, a lot of other cinematographers consider this his best work of his entire career, which is kind of a great note to go out on if every other cinematographer is saying this is your best work and it's the final film you worked on. So
he's one of those that learned on the job. I don't think if you want to research his life, he figured out things on the job.
He went to film school because he failed to be a writer. And then this is all stuff I learned from that special feature, by the way. He went to film school because he failed to be a writer like his dad, and then they all were going to try and make a movie together with their little production company, and they drew job roles out of a hat, and he got cinematographer. So imagine what world we live in if he drew a different name. But we got the great person we got today. So
I'm glad I'm retaining everything. I can retain some stuff. But it's almost like Tom Savini doesn't really want to be known as a makeup artist. He's just a film. Make films.
Yeah, this is just my part.
I want to be an actor. Kind of like Connie Hall's like, I'm a great cinematographer. Man, I wish I was a good writer.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get the job that you're good at, even though you don't really, care for it. But the flashy scene of the rainfall doesn't make sense in real terms, because if Tom Hanks' character was at church and he doesn't care to be murdered, he would totally murder John Rooney in the basement of the church. Right? And the conversation we're murderers in this room. Well, then the end scene, murder him, and then off you go. But you will realize you have to have something flashy to make movie sense to this. And then the rain, something in the rain. It's not crafted well for a writing script, because I write there, why did you just kill him at church? Instead,
part of me I think feels like
a machine gun.
Part of me thinks it all goes back to that piano scene that they share at the beginning, where again, like Rooney sees Michael Sullivan Sr. as a better son than at that point unknown Daniel
Connor.
Craig as Connor. I think he sees him more of a son, and I think Sullivan sees him as a father still, and he wants to give him one last chance, like, give me what I want and I'll go away. And I think that goes back to that scene where they share like a really intimate moment at that funeral together, like surrounded by death. They're still sharing this like strained relationship. I didn't mind that he didn't kill him in the church.
No, you're not supposed to. What I'm saying is, it's for a writer, writer workshop. Why don't you just do it there?
Yeah, there could have been some more smoothing out of the screenplay to kind of inform us as to why Hanks would give him more time. I felt it purely as a
you just need one
moment.
You just need one little line of dialogue or something like that, or just a reason why he has to kill the entire crew or something like that. But yeah, it fits. That's the reason why it doesn't. Writing wise doesn't make sense. Movie wise makes sense.
Yeah, because we have here a screenplay by David Self, who I've never been fully in on as a writer. I'm not here to trash him the whole time, but I'm just saying, like, he had done the remake of The Haunting screenplay. He'd done the remake of The Wolfman, which are both screenplays I think are fine. But I think this is his best work, but it still has a little bit of smoothing issues where it's like you could find a way around certain things. There's definitely more on display, like having the last 20 pages of the screenplay have only 6 lines of dialogue. You know, I think like really like slimming down what's being said so you can just focus on the mood and the tone. Yeah. But yeah, there's still like there's finesses there that are really strong. There's also elements of it that, like you said, we could have gone slightly more in on.
Right. It's very first and second act heavy, and the third act is almost like a drift. And I think they wanted to do that and make it quiet and solemn, and a little bit, relax you for a little bit to give you the trick. But really, it's just 6 pages of dialogue. Let's go.
Right? Yeah, but it makes that scene on the beach. When they finally reach the beach, it makes that scene work so well, not having any dialogue for that moment, because you get lulled into a false sense. And I think that's maybe the point of having the Paul Newman scene in the rain, is that you think it's over, and then it's not. Right. And it depends on whether or not it works for you. But
we critiqued about Hitchcock. It's not that the story doesn't have to be all that cleaned up. It doesn't, but it has to make movie sense.
Yeah, movie sense is way more important.
Yeah, way more important, right? Because it's his heart. Because it's all about fathers and sons are supposed to trouble fathers, and they say it in the movie.
Yep.
And of course, when you have you're almost your surrogate adopted father, you have to execute him. Yeah, because the real kid killed your parent or killed your family.
Yeah, it's kind of I had seen a great quote from Mendes where he talked about how the film is all about being a son and having your father inaccessible to you, and I really thought that was powerful because you get Michael Sullivan Jr. who's just he's just wondering why he's not seen as his father's son in the same way that his brother is, and then you also get Connor, who can completely tell that his dad doesn't love him the way that he loves Michael Sullivan Sr. Yeah. And he takes every opportunity when he's given the chance to prove himself, and he does the exact opposite thing. There are elements of very John Wick-esque before John Wick moments of father and son and boogeymen, and I think that works pretty well for me.
There's a lot of influence, right? Yep. I think I see a lot of influence of The Dark Knight.
Came from this one, yeah.
Yeah, you hit him when it hurts, the wallet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh man, and I think I'm very curious. I didn't get a chance to check out on the Blu-ray. There's scenes shot with Anthony LaPaglia as Al Capone that were removed from the film, and I think it was the smart choice because even looking back at a film I love that features Capone, The Untouchables, and Robert De Niro does kind of stand out as Al Capone. Like you're wondering why we aren't spending more time with Capone. So I think shooting one scene with Capone and then having that be the only thing in the movie with him would make your viewers focus on him instead of on Rooney. And I think it was a smart choice to take him out, but I would like to check out that scene and see what it would have looked like.
Instead of reconcentrate more of the other rival. It's not really a rival, they work together, Nettie.
Yeah, it would kind of take the focus off of the characters that we've been spending our time on. Yeah. To give it to a character that is so well known. I mean, anybody who knows mobsters knows Al Capone's name.
I know Nitty,
a lot of these other guys I kind of had to look up after watching one or two. Like Rooney's based on another person. Nitty is actually a real person. I think it was Capone's cousin, if I'm correct. And so we have a number of people that are related to the scene without actually focusing on it. And it makes Capone into more of a legendary character when people talk about him, but we never see him. Yeah.
And it's played by Stanley Tucci. It has a great shouting scene. I think there was just a little more line of dialogue for that scene to really hammer down Connor, you're a piece of crap. A little more because Connor almost gets the upper hand. I'm going to be in charge one day, and you have to have almost that little line back. No, you constantly need babying.
Yeah.
You're never grown up.
Yeah, it was really cool because I remember Daniel Craig being in this movie. I couldn't recall how much of a character he was. I just knew, like, when Daniel Craig got the role as Bond, I was like, yeah, he was that guy in Road to Perdition. Like, that was where my mind went first.
Oh, really?
But I couldn't place really, like, I think he was a dirtbag. I don't remember. You know, I don't really remember.
Layer Cake was the one that sold him.
Oh, okay.
Bond. If you've ever seen Layer Cake, that was Daniel Craig really shining.
Yeah, and you can see why maybe Sam Mendes was brought in to do Bond after working with him on this film.
But he's really a Weasley.
Yeah, he's not a tough man. I think that maybe stands apart from, again, when people chose him for the role of Bond, looking at this film and others from his past and being like, is he tough? Is he really? Like, he kind of plays tough, but is he tough? It's interesting to see, like, that he kind of rose out from this character. That was where I first saw him, and I remember him most from this movie until he became Bond.
So I do like the setups. I do like the arrangement of the story. The writing I'm not really keen on. I don't think the editing is all that maybe par for me at best.
Yeah, I don't think it ruins a good film. You know, editing can ruin a good film, and it can make a great film out of a bad shooting schedule too. It can fix a lot of things. I don't think this editing adds anything. I don't think it takes away that much. I just think it's kind of it's putting together a very nice looking movie that was working before you got in. You know.
Right, and then that's what I'm saying. It's not really the flashy editing, and it's not really horrible editing. It's just not really what you're there to see.
Yep.
So.
Yep, it's a puzzle putting the movie together. So,
yeah,
I think, you know, I looked at all the characters in this movie, and the minor character that stood out the most to me was one that I didn't expect to, and it was Dylan Baker's character, he's the guy who is basically staying in the really fancy motel.
Oh, right.
And he's got the case with all the money.
Yeah.
His sequence is maybe my favorite in the movie. It's the one where I'm freaking out the most in my seat. And I can tell you, my feet were actually tapping. Like, I was like wrenched in my seat at the tension that was going on as Baker is clearly wasting time looking for the key as he's being held at gunpoint. And then, you know, we got Jude Law running in to take care of him, and we got Sullivan who wasn't paying attention and finally realizes, you know, he starts honking the horn.
It's a great
Everything
build-up.
in that scene was so great.
Right.
Including, like, just Baker's, like, ability to run out of the room as soon as, like, the bad guy shows up. He's like, he's like right out there. And then having the scene end with his death being accidental, too, is all the better. I think Dylan Baker is the standout in this movie because
you didn't get enough scenes.
No one talks about him in the movie, and I think he's maybe my favorite person that we aren't talking about in the movie.
It's almost like oh, that's right, he's in this.
Yeah. The number of people watching this movie and me thinking like, oh, Jennifer Jason Leigh is in this? Like, who's she play? And then I'm like, oh, she's the mom. Oh, okay. Like, there's so many people who popped up in the film that I had completely, like, whizzed out of my head because they just didn't have a large role, but they add to what's there. You know, Jude Law's even one of those guys who, like, I remember him being in the movie. I didn't really remember as much about what he was doing.
He's just disgusting inside and out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the way that he's kind of modeled as being kind of an unfinessed kind of, I think the term they used when they designed his character was rodent-like. And he is kind of like that. He's kind of, you know, sneaks into the dead bodies, takes his pictures, but he's probably the one who killed him. Like, yeah.
He's one of those, like, when you do actor studios, they always, like, sign a animal to your character.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of help. And, yeah, you would sign, like, a rat to him. He's there to survive. And, yeah, it's just, yeah. It's oily, too.
Yeah. I think he said he didn't like his portrayal of the person because he thought he was going to play someone a bit more suave, and he didn't like that he was placed in that spot. But I do think it's great because he's such an iconic looking and acting performance that we again put out of our head after he disappears from the movie for a while, and we forget that he's still a part of it. You know, there's a number of movies that forget their subplots. As soon as their main plot is done, the movie's done. But we see this, the main plot is done, we've forgotten the subplot, and then he shows up one more time.
It's almost like he's early reincarnate, almost an early version of Sugar. We hired a hitman to do a job, and then the guy that hired you is gone, but you're still going to do it.
Yeah. He still wants to do it. He still has a fascination for it, you know? Yeah.
So, there's a lot of things I do like about it. I think it's probably one of the best films of 2002. I would say that. I haven't looked back and see what other films are there, but it shouldn't really. There's a lot of things that should not work. I mean, you put a nose piece on Tom Hanks, and it's like, what?
Yeah, but it blends in nicely. It's better than his hair piece in the Da Vinci Code. So, you know, if you're gonna add something to him,
yeah. But yeah, I think overall, wonderful thing. Costuming, art direction, cinematography. I think it's a movie lover's film. if you're looking for something like writing or something like that, you're not going to find it. But I think it's a movie lover's film.
Yeah.
Especially if you like in the 30s and 40s. And it's a little bit of, Bonnie and Clyde of Robin Banks, and it's always kind of awkward. They have like that homage to that.
Yeah.
Even though there's a sense of danger, even though it's kind of funny at the same time.
Well, I have a strange connection to just Chicago mobsters because it's so close to where we are in Minnesota. Like, it feels like this is our crime location. The Capone stories with the Untouchables, with things like Miller's Crossing, and those kinds of movies that play in that specific area, I find very captivating. I'm planning out a trip to go to Chicago later on this year, and I think I'm going to probably have to hit up a few of these locations.
It's one of the best cities.
I actually, when they're going down that beach path down to get to where the home is at the end of the film, I've been on that. I've walked down that before last year when I was staying in Michigan. My wife and I watched the movie this time.
You had to talk about that.
Oh, man. When we saw the scene, I was like, wait, were we there? And I had to go looking up on IMDb. I was like, we were there. I thought that was pretty cool to be able to revisit the film. But I'll say one thing about Road to Perdition. It's the kind of movie that even if you haven't seen it in years, it feels like a warm blanket to revisit. My wife didn't know I was going to be watching this. I just put it in because I was like, I got to watch it for the show,
Sure.
And I started it up, and she'd walked by just, grabbing a drink of water, and she was like, oh, you watched? Oh, okay. And she went and grabbed her blanket and went and sat down next to me. And she's like, oh, we're watching Road to Perdition now. Because she loves the movie, and she's been begging for a time to watch it. And, of course, now it's on. And she's like, no, I got to sit back down and watch it again. So I think that's the kind of movie it is I haven't seen it in about 10 years. I felt at home watching it again.
I agree. It's one of those, now I realize why I retain...
why you think about it, why it comes up in your head. And I guarantee this has to have some visual connection to some of your work. It has to be somewhere in there.
From my graphic novel, my noir graphic novel, there's a dinner scene, and it's almost lifted from the dinner scene of the boy, Michael, and them at dinner at the counter as everybody else is dancing in the background. But it's almost like they're not engaging. They're almost at the bar. They're not even taking a table. And I kind of use that in my comic book.
Very cool. Yeah. So clearly we like the movie. Now the question is, do you like the movie? Let us know down in the comments what your thoughts are on Road to Perdition, and maybe what's your favorite Sam Mendes movie. I think if you asked that question to 100 people, you'd get at least 5 different answers. I don't know if everybody would say Spectre, but a lot of people would say every other one of his movies.
He's done. Right?
Yeah, so let us know what you thought about it down in the comments section below.
Yes, please.
And while you're down there, please consider liking and subscribing. They're 2 free things that don't cost you a dime, help you support the channel at the same time, and you never miss new episodes of the show as they drop. You can click that little bell icon as well to get notifications when new episodes drop on Mondays, Thursdays, and Scary Movie Saturdays. And don't forget to check out that Patreon link down below. You can sacrifice 1 cup of coffee every month and join the team over there to help us pick the movies we're going to talk about in future episodes.
Yes.
Once again, thank you guys for joining us. You can find all my film reviews over at goatfilmreviews.com.
Hey, you can find my show, the St. Paul Filmcast, anywhere you find podcasts.
All right. Let's go to Chicago. Let's make some money.
I'm not going to go to Perdition, Iowa.